Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my man Minaj. He's joined my Patreon. He's helping support the show, and I'm helping him level up his life. Do you want me to give you a shout out at the beginning of my show? Join my Patreon today. Patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. Link is in the description. And here's the show.
You're listening to the premier podcast for men who want to not only be better with women, but want to be better men in general. This is the Come On Man podcast. And here's your host, Paul Bauer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another week of Come On Man. If you haven't done so already, please like, fave, and subscribe. Hit those notifications. If you are listening on your favorite audio platform of choice, please give us a 5-star review and actually take some time to write out why you like the show. All that kind of stuff boosts us in the algorithm and gets us in front of more men. So if you think that more men could benefit from listening to the podcast, please help spread the word that way. And if you are watching on YouTube, please leave a comment. That helps as well. Just drop your favorite emoji. I don't care. I don't even give a shit if it's an eggplant emoji, you know, like the dick emoji. Just put that in the fucking comments, dude. I don't even care. I don't even care. All right. Oh, also, please help support the show by joining my Patreon. At the time of this recording, I made some modifications to it. I decided that the Discord community was probably not going to work out, not at this early stage anyway. So I've changed the tiers. So tier 3, you get unlimited tech support now via Telegram. Tier 4, you get a monthly audio call from me over Telegram, plus you get the unlimited tech support over Telegram. And then tier 5, the granddaddy of them all, you get a one-on-one Zoom call with me every month. On top of that, you get the one-on-one voice call every month and unlimited tech support. So that top tier actually gets the most value. So check that out. Help support the show. The link is in the description, or you can just go to patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. All right. My guest this week is a returning guest. He's a 3% brother. He's Malcolm Bell. And he returned to the podcast this week. If you guys didn't go back and listen to the original episode with Malcolm is the social circle guy. It's hard to say that 5 times fast. He's the social circle guy. So he's the dating coach that teaches men to sort of find women the old-fashioned way through social circles. And so this time Malcolm came back on because he wanted to talk about all the things that he's learned since he's moved to Russia. At the time of the last recording, he had literally just basically fled Canada and moved to Russia, which is really funny to hear, right? Like, no one thinks about that. Like, things must be pretty bad in Canada if you're fleeing Canada and moving to Russia, of all places. But Malcolm loves it there, and he shares with us all sorts of things that he's learned since being there. And it's a great interview. You guys are going to get a lot of value out of this. And I'll bring you that conversation right after these words. Hey, you, I'm going to make this real quick. I know you hate ads. If you like this show, if you love this podcast, if you think more men should tune in, then you should consider joining my Patreon. You will be supporting the show, and I get to help more men level up their lives. There's now 5 tiers available, starting as low as $5 a month. It's like buying me a beer, and each tier gives you better bonuses. Visit patreon.com/ComeOnManPod to sign up. That's patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. One last time, that's patreon.com/ComeOnManPod. Help me help more men level up and be better with women. All right, returning to the podcast is my good friend Malcolm Bell. I had him on the podcast in January, I think.
January, yeah, it was the last one.
Yeah, to talk to you guys about how they can, how you guys can meet women the old-fashioned way through social circles. And Malcolm has been living in Russia for the last few months and wanted to talk about some of the lessons he's learned over there. What's going on, brother?
Man, just chilling, staying out of trouble as much as possible.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many messages I get from because I'm Canadian, right? But
yeah,
it's crazy how many messages I get from people from like other Canadians, old friends, whatever, family members, even just like laying into me about living in Russia. It's like it's their personal business is like what's going on in Russia, what's happening. And for me, it's like everything is completely normal. I would say more normal than what I left behind in Canada. Because when I left Canada, it was like there were a lot of like economic issues that were starting to foment, and there were a lot of like medical, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to say the certain words on here because I don't want to get us taken off of certain platforms.
Right. There's a lot of political stuff going on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit going on. And when I came here to Russia, it was like night and day. I felt like I was going on vacation to 2014. It was crazy.
That is so strange too, because when you told me about that, I was shocked a little bit myself. I mean, I wasn't like, why would you do such a thing? It was like, that's fascinating to me that things in Canada have gotten so bad that you're going to move to Russia. Like,
yeah,
wow.
Well, it's interesting to see too how the West and the East, we'll call it Russia, China, have more and more and more begun to detach from each other. And all of the sanctions that have been put on Russia and the economic warfare that's been going on has been really, like, if you were trying to set up like a 1984 style, 1984, or was it Brave New World? I forget now, with Eurasia and Oceania, and they're always at war with each other in these different power blocks. Disconnecting Facebook, disconnecting Instagram, disconnecting a plethora of websites, like random stuff you wouldn't think about, like WebMD. I can't get on WebMD without, a VPN here in Russia. So there's this massive like separation now. And it's also being now realized ideologically as well, which is kind of cool, how the Russian spirit and the Russian, way of viewing the world, which I think is quite distinct from the Western way of viewing the world, is being allowed, we'll say, to push towards its logical conclusions, maybe. Like, for example, I mean, one of the things that I've found is it's amazing how my deep interest in socializing and helping men, build communities is something which is a very old and very valued idea here, right? Mm. And where in the West, everyone's like this rampant individualism, you have in a place like Russia or even Eastern Europe, it's much, much more connected with the highest virtues are not money. The highest virtues, although they are materialistic, they like, driving G-Wagons, and they like dressing well and looking good and impressing their friends through material success. At the same time, it's a lot of times more about the connection with other people than it is about the material, success in and of itself, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
Can I ask you what it's been like living over there? Because I mean, the last time we talked, the whole Ukraine situation didn't start, but it started since then. Mm-hmm. Now, from what it's like over here, there's like a whole faction of people on one side that are like, oh, Ukraine, we got to support Ukraine. And they've changed all their fucking profile pictures to Ukrainian flags and stuff. I'm like, what? Like, what? Why are you changing your profile picture to a Ukrainian flag? Are you even Ukrainian? Like, stop. Yeah. And then there's the whole other side that's just like we should stay out of it. What's it? Or, but the pro-Ukrainian people are all anti-Russia now. I've got guys that work for me that are super on that side, and they're like, oh, Putin, he's a dictator and stuff. And I'm like, is he a dictator though? I don't think that's an appropriate label. But what's it been like on that side of the curtain?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I have to be careful too, because I don't I'm learning Russian and I'm getting, decent at it. Yeah. But I don't watch Russian TV. I don't watch Russian news. Even my social media does not show me Russian centered issues or ideas. Yeah. And so it's really hard for me to talk about what is it from the perspective of Russians. Now, that being said, I've met a lot of people here. I've met a lot of people who are well connected into the political world, into the financial world, people who work for Sberbank, people who work for NGOs and different international organizations. And their attitude is very much, it's very pragmatic. It's very focus on the things over which you have control and then ignore everything else. It becomes like infotainment. One of my Russian friends was telling me, I was asking him like, like, has this been affecting, because Putin came to St. Petersburg recently and gave a speech to a whole bunch of finance guys. And my friend was at that event, and he was saying that the speech that Putin gave was basically, stop looking to the government and stop looking to the State Duma to solve your issues. This is a room of some of the smartest and hardest working Russians. It's up to you to figure out how this country is going to progress into the future and how it's going to work. Don't look to me like I'm your dad to try to fix all your issues for you. Take responsibility for Russia, take responsibility for yourselves. He's like, and he was basically saying like, our primary goal is to make sure that you people can do things inside Russia to innovate and create and build and design and invent. But our job is more to protect borders, stop, revolutions, things like this. Now, of course, you could say as soon as someone says it's to stop revolutions, like immediately it's like, oh, he's a dictator. But it's hard to say, because the Russian people traditionally were monarchic, right? Like they had monarchs for a long time. And you could even argue that throughout the Soviet Union, there was this sort of sense of like one leader who was leading everybody and would give them the answers. And in some ways, Putin, I think, is the return of the czars. And this creation of like a monarchic kind of idea. Now, the Russians resist and see it as like their blood right to like ignore and subvert government. It's like Russians together versus the government. And it's very adversarial. Whereas you look in Canada, and for example, Canadians love to trust their government. They want to believe that their government is full of statesmen and not politicians, and that these people fundamentally have their best interests at heart. But that's a good way to be, because I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be a statesman. I want to go work on the things that resonate with me, and I don't want to have to. I want to kind of elect people that I will trust with my best interests at heart, and will go out and do those things. Now, what happens though if they don't? Well, now I've got to go get involved in politics. There's pros and cons to both systems. Russians are like, no politician can be trusted. They are all liars. They're all snakes. Even if there is one good one, he's the exception to the rule. Whereas you look at, Canada, and it's like all the politicians generally have the best interests at heart. Especially the civil service, people generally believe that civil servants have their best interests at heart. Police officers, the clerk behind the desk at some random, motor vehicle organization. No, Russians believe that like the woman behind the desk at the motor vehicle organization is bureaucratic and is going to get in your way. And so it's all about us sticking together. We need to be united as Russian people, helping each other to subvert this bureaucratic system at every corner. But the problem is it creates a lot of waste. It creates a lot of like inefficiency. It's a lot of, just kind of garbage.
That's fascinating, because, man, it's like, you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that being over here, because the US was born with that kind of mentality, not trusting government, overthrowing the government because, it wasn't serving the people, forming our own government. But now you go to the leadership that's here now, and it's trying to be more like Canada, trying to be like, hey, we're here to take care of you. It's our jobs to take care of you. And then there's the people on the one side that are like, yeah, that's the government's job to take care of us. When like that's never been my mentality. I was always raised with the government causes more problems than it fixes, and the people should be taking care of themselves, so that's fascinating, because you would never think that, most people I think have the opposite idea, because Russia was a communist state for such a long time. But that's Russia fascinating.
Russia went through this phase like in the 90s during perestroika, after perestroika. So basically Mikhail Gorbachev, I won't give a whole history lesson here, but essentially the last leaders of the Soviet Union were really trying to they didn't want the plane to crash into the ground. They wanted it to have kind of a controlled landing and to revolutionize in a controlled way into like a capitalist market economy. And there were all these liberalizations that happened during perestroika. And The problem is that the 90s was this time of absolute lawlessness. It became, for example, like, how do you move from a place where the government owns everything to the people own everything? Well, the way they did it was they basically had these like tickets where they would give out to each person in Russia would get a ticket that said basically you own 0.0001% of Russia. Well, what does that mean? Like,
yeah. Was it like a stock?
Yeah, it was like a stock. It was basically a stock.
Okay.
And what they did was they took these tickets, though. Smart people, savvy business people would collect these tickets, and they would go to their friends and family, and they would try to get as many of them as they could. And once they got some random arbitrary amount of them, they would rock up somewhere and say, I have 0.5% of Russia. Give me this factory, or give me this bridge, or I want these railroad cars, or, you know, I own this. And basically the government would just be like, okay, sure, you own it now. And
I think a lot of those guys were ex KGB guys.
A lot of them were very, you know, existing business people, and they had the energy. And I've spoken with, so again, through my network here, I've spoken with some older Russians as well. And I've asked them questions like, what was the difference between people who succeeded during this time of just like absolute chaos and uncertainty? The time you couldn't plan in the future because everything was so uncertain, and the time horizon had shortened, so you couldn't plan anything. Mm-hmm. Well, what was the difference between people who got absolutely fantastically rich from the people who did not? The people who got rich were very brave, and they moved forward in spite of the uncertainty. And this is something I think we can learn from right now in the world, is like, there's so much uncertainty going on right now. Like, what's the stock market going to do? What's crypto going to do? What's going to happen with my job? What's the legal environment going to look like? You just have to continuously take action in spite of the uncertainty, right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing too that Russians really did, which was valuable, was they really formed like these brigades of guys that would, at the end of the day, get violent with each other. If I want this factory and you want this factory, well, we're just going to go and beat you up, basically. There's a great TV show actually about, it's a girlfriend of mine, her father. It's actually about kind of like a loose idea of his life, about this guy named Sasha Belov. And it's called Brigada. I think it's called Brigada. And Brigada is basically about these guys being like these gangsters and being mafia. But even the idea of like mafia is kind of a misnomer, because it's just anybody who was outside of the law, maybe, or not acting totally legally. But at that time, it was like, what was the law? It was such a, convoluted concept to say, well, I have this goal of, owning train cars, or I have this goal of owning, this stadium or this oil rig or that ship or whatever. It was a free for all of just grab what you can out of the Soviet Union, essentially. So
that's fascinating. When you're talking about that, what comes to my mind is Bob Proctor. I'm a big fan of his. He's read, Think and Grow Rich like a million times. He just recently passed away, but I watched an old interview with him, and like, I think from like the 70s or something. And he was telling this guy that he used to think that everyone like lost everything during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And, he's like, but that's not the case. He's like, there's lots of people that got rich during the Great Depression. And you talked about not listening to the Russian news. I stopped listening to the local news and national news about 2 years ago. I just pulled away from it because I realized like 99% of it, zero control over, and most of it doesn't affect my day-to-day life, and not focusing on it has let me focus on such like more positive things. And then the idea that, hey, even in times of uncertainty, people get rich.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to focus on the doom and gloom all the time. That, you can focus on what you can control, and you'll probably end up being successful,
Yeah. Well, it's true too, because like I was reading a recent book called, I love reading. I think it's imperative to be reading in this day and age.
Yeah.
So many people are just reading Instagram or reading like these really short, easily digestible ideas, or
they only tune into podcasts.
Yeah. Long form podcasts, please, everyone.
Yeah. Podcasts are good.
Exactly. But Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, I was reading recently. And even the idea of like these levels of consciousness, if I don't know if the listeners are familiar with this book, but the idea is basically that you've got 0 vibration or whatever, which is dead, and then 1,000, which is total enlightenment. But most of human civilization kind of moves around these pretty low levels of like, you've got apathy, which is just maybe one step above death. You've got grief, which is just above that, which is like, I'm a victim. I would do it, but I can't because I'm a victim of, the government or, my mom or whatever.
Yeah.
And moving to a higher level is actually to get angry, for example. One higher than grief is anger, but higher than that is like fear. And it's like, I could do it, but I'm nervous and afraid to do it. And this is, I think, a big part of what this media machine tries to do is it tries to keep people disconnected. It tries to keep them afraid. It tries to basically reinforce this idea that like, you can't do it. And even if you could, it would cause some irreparable damage to your life if you failed. If you failed, it would be devastating.
Yeah.
But also the one above fear is desire, where it keeps you also running for your desires. Like, I want a cool car. I want a hot girlfriend. I want a cool house. I want my friends to respect me. All these different ideas. And so you're vacillating between this like constant fear of taking action and the desire for more. And it's so predatory, and it keeps you in this state of like paralyzed with inaction. But then the machine is able to offer you like, oh, just get a job. Oh, just work 9 to 5. That'll be your way out. And they give these very narrow ways out, which are completely controlled. It's like a theme park. They've turned reality into like this theme park. Mm-hmm. Where there's really, and this is my tough part, is like, there's no cracks to fall through anymore. Like as a man, you don't want everything like smooth and polished and nice and shiny and safe and, everything's nicely collected in a pile. No, I want like cracks to fall through. I want some danger. I want some adventure. And many men turn towards like video games to fulfill this desire. But this has been one of the things I've enjoyed about Russia so far, is that there's still cracks to fall through. There's still dangerous things to get into. And sure, it's not like, maybe life-threatening, but it just feels a bit more masculine maybe to have these sort of, even just like a nightclub that doesn't seem entirely safe. That just seems a little bit like the people here, if you screw around with them a little too much, it might get you into a bit of trouble. And that's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting.
That reminds me of my Navy days and going down to Tijuana.
How so?
Oh, just, man, Tijuana was it's crazy down there, And when I joined the Navy, I was 18.
Okay.
And so obviously between 18 and 21, I'm not allowed to drink. But when I was stationed in San Diego, the border is just, 30 minutes, a 30-minute trolley ride to the border. And then you walk across the border, and then you're immediately in this third world country where you have to walk down this shitty alleyway to get to what's called Revolution Avenue. And that's where most of the clubs are in Tijuana. But that crazy alleyway, you're just like looking around because you don't know if someone's going to try to, hold you up for your money. It's just like lawless down there. And then the federales are all on the take, so there's no one you can turn to. And then you go down there and it's just like, you're relying on like the sailors around you to like, we got to watch each other's backs down here and stuff. And it's crazy. It's just crazy stuff. But that kind of stuff it makes you build character. So
I was just going to say the same thing. It really helps you like sharpen your claws as a man. Mm-hmm. And I think I remember hearing on like Jordan Peterson's Joe Rogan podcast from like, years ago now, this idea that like, if all you can be is nice, it's not that valuable. You need to be able to be a monster and then choose to be kind and choose to be peaceful. It's like the warrior in the garden is better than to be a gardener in a war. Yeah. And that's something I think that a lot of young Russian people that I've been talking to, they just seem to be like more savvy. Now, this brings another problem, which is that they have a lot of trust issues with each other, they really seem to struggle to trust each other. They really struggle to like, oh, are you going to try and screw me over? And they notice like, people trying to screw them over, maybe preemptively when someone wasn't really trying to screw you over. Maybe there was a misinterpretation or something like this. And they'll sort of like walk away from relationships and walk away from friendships over like really dumb, strange, like kind of stuff, perceived slights.
Yeah. Which isn't very healthy either.
No, it's not. It's not for sure. And definitely when you're trying to like, it's been strange. Like I've had a few Russian people come to me now, especially women, for example, will say, the idea of a guy building a social circle or an entourage of a whole bunch of women, and then also simultaneously not really like dating them or giving them any particular special attention as like, this is my girlfriend, chasing them down and wanting and being like, be my wife, be my girlfriend. I had one girl who's very smart, and she was telling me how at first she found this very strange and kind of off-putting. But then when she started to meet, for example, like all of my other girlfriends, all of the other couple, I haven't met so many guys. It's harder to find good guys. I find guys are kind of more like in two piles. There's like a small pile of interesting guys and a big pile of like just not that great guys. Yeah. But women are much more average, and they're more able to fit into whatever kind of environment they're in. Maybe just a product of being more empathetic. But she was telling me how it was just strange for her when she first met me, being like, is he trying to date me? Is he trying to just like, the idea of guys and girls being friends is kind of strange. Mm-hmm. But when she started to realize that like there's all of these other benefits to connecting with Malcolm and connecting with his group of friends, all of a sudden she's like, I'm a true believer in this. She's like, I want to teach everybody in Russia this idea of like, just connect with each other, build your group, build a gang, build a crew of people. It makes life, it facilitates so much more in life. It's insanity. It's insane what you can do when you just have more people. Right? Yeah.
That's interesting because the last time we spoke, you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that you typically found that building connections with men was actually more beneficial because there would be like business owners, or one guy might own a yacht or something. And so how has that changed since being in Russia and connecting more with women as opposed to like?
No, I'm absolutely, the point still stands. I think that connecting with men, a lot of guys just have this like very unidimensional maybe focus on like, I need women. I need girls.
Yeah.
And it's like,
how do I really get the girls? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's the same idea of like, I need to learn game. I need to learn how to spit good lines at people on the street or something like this. The over focusing on women is dangerous in my opinion. And most of the time it stems from guys who are looking to women to tell them who they are and to be able to give them some kind of purpose in life so that they can get like good boy pats on the head by surrogate mommies, essentially. Yeah. And it's that they never really figured out their relationship with their mom because they never did the very important but very difficult transition from the comfortable lap of your mother into the challenging world of men. And a lot of men, and I've seen them, they're like, some of them are in their 40s even, and they've never made that bridge from mommy telling me what to do and leading my life and instructing me on how to live into the self-determined, independent or interdependent kind of man who can choose the direction that he wants in life. So that man can choose to be around more women, but for the man who's still looking for like mommy to stand in for him, it's very dangerous, and he needs to like almost have like a ritualized becoming a man ceremony or something, go out and do something difficult and challenging before he can honestly and in a real way connect with women. So I would say, to clarify, I guess the point is that yes, 100% it's valuable to connect with men, and it is in most ways more valuable to connect with men. But good men are a lot more rare than attractive women. Attractive women are like dime a dozen. Guys get so obsessed over like, oh, this one hot girl.
Yeah.
they're everywhere. Like there's so many attractive women. Like it's actually crazy how many just hot girls there are out there. I know Americans are getting kind of fat these days, but
there's still hot women here.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I just a side topic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with him. There's this guy, John from Modern Life Dating. He's one of the Rule Zero guys. He moved to Japan.
Okay.
And he.
What is that Rule Zero?
Rule Zero. It's a men's podcast. They do it every Saturday, and it's like Rollo Tomasi, a bunch of other guys from the Manosphere, and it's a panel discussion. And he's on the panel, and he moved to Japan, and he trashes America, and he's like, everyone's fat there, and the women aren't worth shit, and all this stuff, right? Like he's that guy, and he's like, oh, over here in Japan, like women are so much better. And there, there's a lot of guys that share that sentiment. But I am like, I love America, I'm one of those guys. And so I'm like, yeah, there's some fat ass chicks here. There's some skanks here, but there's still good women here. Come on, guys. Like we have a huge ass country. Japan's like this big. We have like this much space. You don't think you can find a good woman in that much space? Fuck off, but
yeah, it's also just this, I don't want to go down the route of like, this is going to start getting branded as some kind of nationalist ideal.
No. But the thing,
you gotta like your country. Russia, you gotta like your people. It's like my family's not perfect. My mom and dad and I argue sometimes. My sister and I don't always get along, but it's still your family, right? Mm-hmm. And your countrymen, your country folk are an extension of your family. And to just kind of up and leave and run off and be like, I like this other family better. It's kind of like, it just doesn't sit with me. It just feels weird. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I do respect him for, I like his stuff. I like his content. He actually has some entertaining stuff, but the thing I respect him for is he doesn't like it here. And so he left. Great. Because there's so many people that are here bitching about it. And it's like, well, fucking leave then, and but they won't. They just want to sit here and bitch. He didn't. He moved. So great. Good on him.
And I know, I did the same thing. I know how it can be very difficult. It's definitely tough to move to a new city, to find, to have to start over like that. It's definitely difficult. If you have the right strategies to do it, it can be, easier. But like, I couldn't imagine, like I've got clients who are, moving to new cities for work, even within the United States. And they're arriving in a new city and they're looking around and they're like, oh shit. I have no friends and I have no idea how to meet anybody. And it's difficult. It's really difficult for them when you don't have the right, you don't know what to do.
Yeah. When you moved to Russia, you left with a few people though, right? Like you didn't just go by yourself.
I came with two other people. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were
at each other.
Yeah, exactly. They were Canadians, Canadian and a Russian who was living in Canada. But yeah, like that was a big reason why we came to Russia here was, again, like the extension of my sort of, gang, we'll call it, of a bunch of guys that I kind of went to private school with when I was a kid, and then other people that I've met over the years and connected with. And those guys are all of us. We sort of have like weekly, we'll get together and talk. And we were discussing like, we're really not impressed with the direction that Canada is going. And we want to figure out, okay, long term, rich people don't think in terms of 1 year. They think in terms of like 10 years. And so we're trying to think like, okay, is Canada the place that we want to be in 10 years from now? I just don't know. And so a lot of people are kind of like, even Russians are like, why would you go to Russia? Like, what on earth? But I really think that like economically in the future, if there's a few key issues that if Russia can get past them, I think that they will do really, really exceedingly well in the future. Like they've got the natural resources, they've got the smart people, they've got like pretty good international relationships with like the Eastern Bloc. They've got good relationships with China. And so I don't know, the future we'll see what the future holds. But I do like ideologically, I do like the way the Russian people think. I'm kind of alarmed, like the idea of raising kids in Canada is sort of like, I'm not going to put them into public school. It takes a village to raise a child. And, I've got the community for sure. And I think it's super important for men to be connecting with other men and other women for more than just like fun nonsense, but also for like lifestyle, but not just like fun lifestyle, for like productive lifestyle, for building businesses that can provide for you and your family, for finding other people that see the world similarly to you, but can inject good values and good lifestyle into your children as well, and can watch you and keep you accountable, and can watch your wife and keep her accountable, and you can watch them, and you all are kind of looking out for each other and keeping you on the straight and narrow, maybe, as the rest of the world is kind of burning. And that's a huge important component that I'm just not convinced that Canada has. It's pulling a lot of people down, and a lot of people, as you said before, right? Everyone's focused on, oh, it's so bad, oh, it's so terrible. Well, do something about it, or shut up and make your bed, or whatever it's called, like where you just live. Just deal with it.
Yeah, that's really all you can do. Let's switch over to some of the things we were chatting about before setting this up. One of the things you said that you've realized over the last few months is that it's more expensive to book economy than business class, because you can make you can make valuable connections in business class. Now, this is interesting because I wrote this note down. I just read the book Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone.
Yeah, great book.
And he says it's more expensive basically to bring a sacked lunch than it is to go out and take a client to lunch, because you can't make sales dining alone.
Oh, interesting. I must have missed that part of the book. Yeah, it's the same idea. It's absolutely the same idea. It's the reason why I had this epiphany was because I was riding on the high-speed rail from St. Petersburg to Moscow for a motorcycle race. And the guy that I met in the dining car, he and I have become pretty good friends, and I've met through him now a few other people. And he was in first class or business class, I forget which one we were in. And I just booked that ticket on a whim. Like, usually I would have just gone economy, because it's like, why would I spend the money? I don't really need a meal. I don't really care about, a comfier seat. I don't, that's not a value that I prioritize for. And so I'd rather just take that opportunity to practice, poverty or whatever. But minimalism. Sure. Yeah. Well, Seneca talks about, in the Stoic philosopher Seneca talks about the value of practicing poverty occasionally. To, like, he was pretty rich, and so he would basically go, once or twice a month, and basically go be homeless for a day. And he would realize that, like, his fear around, like, having nothing, it wasn't actually that big of a deal. Like, he would sleep on the street and be like, oh, it's not that bad. Yeah. And it kind of evaporated his fear of poverty. And so it meant that he wasn't running away from things so much as he was running towards ideals and goals, right?
Interesting. But we call that camping here, but yeah.
So so I met this guy on the train, and it's facilitated like a whole bunch of different opportunities for us, travel opportunities. We went like riding dirt bikes the other day with him. And now I've met some of his friends who are opening up a nightclub, and now I have some opportunities there to be, in with the management of this nightclub, or the owners, I guess, of this nightclub. So it's really cool where the doors that open by putting yourself into higher class, higher caliber environments. And so, yeah, Grant Cardone's right. Like, taking a bag lunch and sitting in the bathroom on the toilet is dangerous. You're cutting yourself off from all the opportunities to meet other people if you were to go out somewhere. It's like going with your friends for lunch at Denny's versus going to like a slightly, I don't know, bougier place maybe, and getting to know the wait staff, getting introduced, introducing yourself to another table of people, cheersing some random people at another table. And then you find out, oh, dang, that's the owner of some, big company. And wow, he's actually a really cool guy. And we totally hit it off. And now I can provide him with this value, and he can provide me with this value. And even just to have friends of virtue, people you get along with. We sort of have this idea that like rich people or successful people are a little bit like rude, or they're somehow like immoral or something like this. But it's actually usually the opposite. The people who are high value in our world are usually high value in many different ways. They have a stronger spirituality. They have a stronger morality. They enjoy beauty and excellence and things like this. Whereas people who are poor usually have a poor mindset in like every area of their life. They see everything from this poor person mentality. Like, they see women as, status objects that they need to fight over, or they judge other people very negatively, and they never read, and they never do anything with their time except for just consume. They don't produce anything. It's this poor person mindset, which pervades all aspects of their lives.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, and that's really sad too. I see a lot of guys follow people like Andrew Tate. Do you know? Are you familiar with
No, I
Andrew
don't
Tate?
know. I've heard the name, but I can't place it.
Probably for the best. He, I like what he says though. I mean, he says some interesting stuff, but he's so brash. He's such like he just comes across like his character is like this. And I say character because he's clearly playing a character, but he comes across as this arrogant rich guy that like I drive Bugattis and you're poor and don't be poor and women like me because
Wait, is
I'm
he
rich.
like the bald guy who always wears sunglasses and is on the front? Oh yeah. I've seen him. I've seen him.
And I keep wanting to make a video about it. I'm just trying to think of the wording here. Baby, go lay down. My puppy's right here. I want to make a video about this. Like there's guys that follow him because they're like, oh, this guy, he rides private jets and he screws all these women all around the world and look how rich he is and stuff like that. But if you read like a book like The Millionaire Next Door, like most rich guys aren't like that. Most rich guys aren't driving around Bugattis and living in McMansions and stuff like that. They're down to earth people. Like every seriously wealthy guy that I've met, totally cool. Not all loudmouth like that, driving private jets and shit.
And even the guys who are flying private jets, they're often nice guys too, right? Yeah. Like even with Grant Cardone, like I remember when Clubhouse first started, I was one of the early, members of Clubhouse, which if people don't know was sort of like this invitation only voice chat room thing. It was kind of like old school TeamSpeak almost. And so you would have topics and rooms that you could discuss different topics. And Grant Cardone was on there. And he and a couple other guys were hosting rooms. And I remember talking with him and his daughter, actually, who's quite an interesting girl as well. She's really young, but he's a very genuine, nice guy. He's not, he doesn't really have a lot of negativity. He doesn't really see people as better or worse. He just more sees people as like inhibited or not inhibited in a lot of ways. Like even I remember him talking to his daughter and how she also seemed to exemplify this idea of like, you're either doing it or you're not. And we want to surround ourselves with people who are doing it, was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
And whatever it is for you. But as long as you're doing something and you're doing it on a high level and you're really pushing yourself to do more and you're producing, a lot of times wealthy people are interested in being around you. If you are letting out your authentic self, so many of us are grasping life so tightly all the time. That nothing can flow through you when you've got your fists so tightly clenching the little bit that you have. But if you start, it's scary, I know, but if you start to open your hand, you'll really find more flows to you. Like even in social circle, one of the things that I teach the guys is like, when a woman comes into your social circle, don't immediately be evaluating whether or not she's the right one for you to date. If anything, introduce your friends to her, help her find a good guy that she could date. And the more you say, I have many people who are interested in me, and so I freely introduce my friends. I'm not threatened by guys trying to meet my girlfriends. The more you do that, the more women see a man who is very open, very outcome independent, very confident, has options. And ironically, they actually get more interested in you when you're the one saying like, hey, why don't you go meet my friends? Hey, here's somebody here I can introduce you to. And they're going like, wait, what? You're not interested in me? And you're like, yeah, well, let's be friends. Hey, you're like a sister to me, whatever. And they get so much more interested in you when you can. And it's the same for money, right? When you're like so tight-fisted with it doesn't really move. When you can just sort of like, yeah, whatever, I give it away because I don't need it. You'll find a lot more it comes to you and people are more willing to like give to you too.
Honestly, I don't know if you believe in it or not, but that's law of attraction stuff right there, Is it? Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's totally law of attraction stuff. The more, you sit there and think about, what you don't have, right? Yeah. The more you're thinking about lack, the more lack comes to you. And like it as opposed to having an abundance mindset, you hear people talk about abundance mindsets all the time.
Yeah.
And, but when you have that abundance mindset, you get more abundance. And that's
I've never really read any of the law of attraction stuff. Where would you start if you wanted to? Because I've had a few people now message me and say like, yo, you should read law of attraction. Where would you start? What would be the starting point on that topic?
Honestly, I think the movie The Secret is a great starter, but the problem with The Secret is it really comes across as this magical thinking thing where like if you just wish it, it'll magically happen. And that's not how it works. There's lots of, explanations for why it works. There's like spiritual, I'm writing a book right now. There's the first chapter is on law of attraction, right? So there's a spiritual explanation for it. There's a quantum physics explanation for it. And then there's just the psychological explanation for it, which I think is just the simplest. It's the most believable and it makes the most sense. So I explain it from that perspective in my book.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to read it.
But really it's just like whatever you focus your mind and attention to, like your subconscious just spends night and day figuring out how to make it a reality.
Right.
And
this is where we talk to about the idea of your reticular activation system.
Yeah.
Right. You've got your RAS in your head where if you are looking for the color blue and you're thinking about blue, you're going to notice blue everywhere.
Right. But like the picture in your background. Red,
then immediately you're thinking about red. Yeah, exactly. And so the same is true on a much grander sense of if you get clear on what are the type of people you want to be around, what is the type of women you want to be around, what kind of things do you want to do, and you get clear on that and you start to think about it all the time, you kind of naturally bring it into your life. You naturally will sort of draw it into yourself. But if you're always thinking about how, oh, people don't like me, I'm kind of annoying and people are annoyed by me, well, then that's what you're going to find. You're just going to find more people who are annoyed by you all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, you also said that you recommend that people dedicate themselves to no drama in social circles. And if you start getting sucked into drama, the whole thing can explode as you compromise your status as a man in a very public way. What did you mean by that? Like in a public way?
Well, that is funny. So when I wrote, because we were talking about that idea before, and that was something which, like, I'm not some sage on a mountaintop who's like passing down, magic wisdom. I'm very much in the trenches with the rest of my clients and with the Telegram group that we're in. It's a battlefield out here, right? Every day, guys are getting smacked down by mistakes and getting crushed by stuff, but it's your ability to get up and keep moving forward. But at that time, I had gotten crushed a little bit and compromised my reputation maybe as just sort of like this high value guy that doesn't really need anything from women and isn't manipulatable maybe. And I had gotten a little bit too interested maybe in one woman whose behavior was not that good and had encouraged bad behavior because of, my own maybe issues. I don't know what they might be. I guess I know what they are, but we won't go into that right now.
Fair enough.
But it was just like I made some mistakes, chasing people a little too much, caring a little too much about what people thought of me. And when you're in a social circle and when you're in a public setting like that, even if it's a group of 12 people or 15 people, and you're making a fool of yourself like that by being so needy, it's very dangerous. And so you have to be very quick to refer back again to like, what do you want? What do you want out of your social life? What do you want your social circle to look like? And when one person is doing things which are not what you want, you can talk to them about it and you can bring it to their attention and you can understand that, people don't act in the service of evil. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to make the world a shittier place for everybody, except maybe some psychopaths. People act in service of their own needs. And so, for example, if a woman's trying to get your attention and she's creating drama and problems, you can make it clear to her that, like, you get more of my time when you act excellent and you get less of my time when you act shitty. But if you give her more of your time when she acts shitty, she's just going to act shittier all the time because you're reinforcing the behavior that you don't want. And so you really have to dedicate yourself. And this is as much for myself and my clients as it is for everybody. You have to dedicate yourself to, if a person is causing drama, even if it's someone you like, even if it's someone who you really want it to work out with, you need to distance yourself from that person. You need to make it clear that drama is not okay. And then you need to sort of use the old soft next, where you just sort of, you get more of my time when you're good and you get less of my time when you're not good to be around. And I don't I don't need anything from you. I don't need validation or something like this where I will put up with abusive and bad behavior from somebody. No, you simply won't.
Yeah, it's interesting. What comes to my mind when you're talking about that situation is I see a lot of guys in the 3% man group. I see a lot of guys in my comments section where they'll have a lot of this type of information down, the how to be a 3% man type stuff, but they've spent their whole lives being operating under a certain programming, and they haven't read the book in a while. They've been out of practice, and they start falling back on the old programming, and they let that kind of stuff happen. It happens to all of us, and I think like it really, the key to that sort of thing is being conscious of it. Don't beat yourself up for it. Cause I mean, like everyone slips, and then figuring out a path forward on how to not let that happen again.
And also to have the men around you that don't have your ego and don't have, cause you think about it, when someone's like, falling in love, or when someone's, it's the same receptors in your brain that light up when you're doing hard drugs. It's literally a drug addiction. And people act in insane, nonsensical ways to get heroin, and they act in insane, nonsensical ways to get love or lust or whatever it is, this sort of like infatuative feeling. And so you need to have guys around you that will call you to be the best version of yourself and say, hey, whoa, bro, what you're doing here is not right. This is not you. And you need to, and they can give you direct advice. I remember reading, I don't remember where I read this. It might've been in 3% Man. It might've been somewhere else, where you need to, if your friends need to come to you and say, you're saying like, I kind of want to, screw this woman at my work, but I don't want to screw up my marriage. I think this was in 3% Man. And it's like, they need to come to you and they say, okay, either do it or shut up about it forever. And so this is what it is, right? Is you need to have manly men that will come to you and say, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is pathetic. This is totally pathetic. And and some guys are so hopelessly addicted. I've had clients in the past that I've had to say to them, like, do not speak to me about this ever again. Either go, chase your ex till the point where you have a restraining order against you, or shut up about it and start going and meeting more people. And one guy, like, there's guys who chose basically to chase her until they got a restraining order against them. Yeah. And if you're not going to listen to what your friends say, like, why even have the friends? But the value of the friends is so immense to have a group of guys that can say, like, we see this is not okay, man. And so we're going to help you get past that.
Yeah. That's honestly one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of the red pill, not the trash you see online where people are just bashing women, because that's not red pill. That's just douchebags on the internet.
I mean, it's the anger phase,
right?
Like, I was heavily involved in the red pill community when it was on Reddit, in its very infancy. And that was something that we always said was that, and this is actually from Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, is that you go through these levels, right? You start off at apathy, where you're like, I don't care about anything. Everything's fucked. I'm worthless. Nothing's worth doing. It's all stupid. And then you can't just jump all the way to like love and inspiration and willingness and all these like high virtuous values. You actually have to move up step by step. And so you move from apathy towards grief, and you move into victim status. And for a person who's in apathy, to move towards victim status is actually huge. In that movie, Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams is saying to Will, like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's actually very cathartic to tell somebody who's in apathy that it's not your fault. And you see Will starts crying, where he's like, he's just breaking down because he's moving to a higher energetic level where he's saying like, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But we don't want to stay in grief. We want to move up even more. And that's the next step, is anger, where you're like, anger in the sense of injustice, that things are not the way you want them to be. Get angry, get really angry, but don't stay there. Move toward courage, where you start to be courageous and you start to take action and you start to do things, which then you move from courage up to even higher levels. And so a lot of the guys in the red pill community, they get stuck in this like forever anger phase,
Yeah.
Well, no, you need to keep moving forward. It's good that you moved from apathy to anger. That's great. That's really good. It shows movement forward, that I can do it, but I'm being held back by something and I'm angry about it. Well, keep moving forward. Don't get stuck there where you're just like yelling about women and then yelling cow or something like this.
Yeah. Well, that's all accurate too. But what I meant by that though was that one of the things that it's taught me is that to not like, so guys tend to want to get lost in new relationships, and they fall head over heels in love and
drug addiction.
Right. And what red pills taught me is that it's good to be aware of yourself more and stay lovingly detached. That way you can still maintain healthy boundaries, still maintain leadership role in the relationship. You can love her, but you need to also be aware of it and yourself and your actions and stuff like that, so that you can maintain those healthy boundaries. That's one of the things I've learned in
you
that
can
community.
remain playful, which is ultimately very attractive. Yeah,
absolutely. We're at an hour here. My dog's losing her mind and I have a hard stop. So I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah, man.
We only got to like a fraction of the things that we were talking about. But
I don't care. It's always fun to chat. And I think hopefully these are interesting for people.
Oh, no, I think there's a lot of value in this conversation. Malcolm, where can people find you online?
That's a good question right now. My Instagram is changing right now because I think I got shadow banned on Instagram for posting a certain video that got Instagram a little riled up. But probably the best place to find me is just my website, elevatedatingblueprint.com. I usually stay on there. Okay.
Well, if you were also talking about possibly starting a new Instagram. So if by the time this airs, I think this will air in like September or something like that. If you have that, just shoot it to me and I'll put it in the description. Okay. So guys, check the description. We'll see. Just see if he has a new Instagram. Otherwise, go to his website.
Yeah, and hopefully we can do this again. I think that there's definitely some other stuff that you and I were discussing that I think would be valuable and interesting for people. But the Russia stuff is so pertinent, I guess, to what's going on right now. And I think people ask me like constantly about it. So it's good to talk about it. It's good to share. Yeah, I think people will find this fascinating. They're like, wait a minute, Russia's not this crazy dictatorship and with the gulags and shit. Canada was. That's crazy. Crazy. Yeah. All right, brother. I'm going to let you have your day back. All right. Have a good one. All right. Yeah. Malcolm, thanks for joining me again, brother. It was great catching up with you. Excellent conversation as usual. As always, you're welcome back anytime. For those of you guys that don't know, I think he might have, I'm recording this like weeks after he and I talked, so I'll have to go back and double check, but he might have mentioned his Instagram. And if he didn't, whatever, but he's got a new Instagram now. I guess that's what I'm getting at. His original Instagram somehow something happened to it, got banned for whatever reason, which is weird because he doesn't post anything, edgy. Not like my TikToks where like sometimes I'll post some shit on there that's really just sort of clickbaity, gets people like all up in their feels, and sometimes I get reported. But Malcolm never posts anything like that. So yeah, he hit me up and said that he's got a new account. So I'll post a link to that in the description as well. But I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode. Again, please help support the show by joining my Patreon. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that the 5 tiers have changed. They've gotten better, I think. I think you'll get more value out of them. So check it out. The lowest tier starts at $5. Like it's like buying me a beer. So check it out. Patreon.com/comeonmanpod. That's patreon.com/comeonmanpod. The link is in the description. Other than that, we'll talk to you guys next week.
This has been the Come On Man podcast. New full episodes served hot every Monday morning on your favorite podcast platform of choice. So subscribe now. Follow Paul on social media. The links are in the description. Now, go out and get it.